Welcome to day 12 of our 30-day pelvic floor challenge. If you've made it this far, you're doing really well. We've had a tough couple of days with co-contractions and it's not going to get any easier today. We're still continuing with our co-contractions. So for this one, you will need a little blanket, and for the relaxation, you may need a little bolster. And if you are only doing the relaxation, you can skip to that part in the little timestamp in the description. But similar to last week when we did the sidelying, we're going to also do sidelying now again for both AB and adduction. So for the adductors on the insides of the legs and the abductors on the outside that support the hips. They may be a little tender after yesterday's work. Just bring yourself to lying on your side. And we're going to start with the adductors. So take the top leg so that it is just resting forward. We're going to take our co-contraction. So we're going to start with the pelvic floor contraction. So the little endurance hold, RPE 4 like we did last week. And then we're going to lift up the inside leg. So keep the foot flexed, lifting as though you're kind of pressing upwards and holding the pelvic floor contraction. So we're just going to hold just for 1, keep holding, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Lower that down. Okay, let everything be soft. give things a little wiggle. It's my answer to everything, just a wiggle. Okay, flex the foot, take the pelvic floor contraction. We're going to do this again. I hope you're ready. We're going to lift up for 1, 2, keep holding, 3, 4, and 5. Lower down. Okay. Now we're going to swap legs. So the top leg is the leg that we're going to be lifting. Now you don't have to lift it as absolutely high as you possibly can. I just want you to lift it up so that you feel that you're contracting on all of these muscles at the side of the hip, and try to keep the hips stacked as you do this. You want to have a certain amount of balance in the body, and there will be a little bit of co-contraction in the abs when you do this, but it's not a deliberate co-contraction. Your body will do that naturally. So starting, take the contraction of the pelvic floor, hold that contraction on your pelvic floor, don't let go. Lift the leg, and you're going to hold both for 1, keep holding, 2, 3, balance, remember to keep the tension, 4, and 5, lower down. All right, little wiggle if you want. Straighten the leg, getting ready. So relax the pelvic floor on the inhalation, and then exhale. We're going to take our contraction and then lifting the leg and holding for 1, keep holding, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Lower down. All right, we're going to do the same on the other side. So when you do this, the most important thing is that you don't lose that little endurance hold of your pelvic floor. So that is the important part of what we're doing here. And when you, let's just come down and get started. So we're going to start again on the inside leg. So let the top leg come forward like we did last week. You can flex that bottom foot. We're going to take our contraction of the pelvic floor. Again, RPE 4, not the world's strongest contraction. You're holding the pebble, and then we're lifting up the bottom leg. So lift it and hold it for 1, keep holding, 2, keep that contraction, 3, don't let go of your pelvic floor, 4, and 5, lower it down. It's a little harder, I find, on this side, and maybe you'll find that too. This is an asymmetrical thing, and generally you have more strength on one side than the other. Okay, we're going to go again. We're going to do another one. You can use your hand here for balance if you want to. So you're going to flex that bottom foot. You're going to take your pelvic floor contraction, RPE 4, and don't lose it. You're going to hold it all the way to the end here. Fingers into the floor, lift up the leg for 1, keep holding, 2, don't lose your pelvic floor, 3, keep holding, 4, and 5. Okay, lower down. I'm going to swap to the opposite side. So this leg is keeping a little bit of support. You're keeping the hips so that they are stacked. Your leg is straight. You're flexing your foot. You're going to take your pelvic floor contraction. You're going to hold that RPE 4, so not the strongest ever, just keeping it so that you have a little bit of tension through the pelvic floor. And then we're going to lift up the leg, and you're not going as high as you can. Just take it so that it's just a little bit higher than the hip, and hold for 1, 2, keep holding, don't lose your pelvic floor. 3, keep holding. 4, don't let that contraction go. 5, and lower down. All right, give everything a little wiggle, and we can go again. So just flex the foot, keep the hips stacked, use the hand for support if you need to. Take your pelvic floor contraction, hold. Remember, we can hold this for quite a while, so don't let go as you do this, and then lift up the leg for 1, 2, keep holding. 3, don't let go of your pelvic floor. 4, and 5, lower down. All right, so we're going to just give the legs a little shake, give everything a little wiggle, a little bit of a release, and we're going to move into our relaxation portion. And for today, we are doing a pose called Shoelace. And we've done quite a lot of work on the lower limb this week. So with our co-contraction of the pelvic floor and then co-contractions around the legs. And what this shoelace pose actually gives everything a little bit of a stretch. So you're getting stretching and decompression on both sides. Now, we're going to fold with it. So you may need to have a bolster close by. And depending on your flexibility, you may wish to do half shoelace instead of the full shoelace. So I'm going to first demonstrate what the full shoelace looks like. That's probably the way to go. So for the full shoelace, the bottom leg comes in and the foot is flexed. Both sitting bones stay on the floor and the top leg comes in. So the knees are stacked basically on top of each other. The feet are alongside the hips and everything is kind of squinched in together. And from here, for the full version, we fold forward. Now, this is quite an intense stretch, and it may be that when you go to fold forward, you might want to put your head on a pillow or on a bolster like this, or you may want to have a bolster in front of you so that you don't have to come all the way down. But this is very intense around the hips. You can feel a lot of compressive forces in the hip joints, and it also gives the pelvic floor a little bit of a squeeze. So it's like wringing it out, and that helps to move fluids in and out of all of the tissues, so all of the muscles, which helps with restoring tone and balance, and it can also encourage the release of hypertonicity. Now, if this is too difficult, if you can't get yourself into this position, then you can do what's known as the half shoelace. So for this, you'll make sure that both of your hips are resting into the sitting bones, resting into the floor. You'll seal the knee, take the leg over, so you just have one leg in the pose at a time. Now, if you've tightness in your hamstring, you can put a little blanket underneath your knee so that the leg isn't completely straight, and that's a little bit easier. And from here then you can forward fold. So it's up to you whether you do the half version or the whole version. I'm going to demonstrate the full version of the pose. Coming to your version of this pose, let's say we go for the full version. So seal the left knee, take the left foot so that's just outside the right hip, take the right knee so that the foot is outside the left hip. Everything is nice and neatly stacked. The sitting bones still have some contact with the floor. You can put a little blanket underneath if you need to. And then I'm going to use the bolster for this. And we're going to take this one for 2.5 minutes on each side. So allowing yourself to fold forward. And then noticing how it feels around your hips. And this can be quite an intense pose. So try to find a position in which you can relax. So you can see I'm just using my hands to take the weight of my head. And this allows me to forget so much about the upper part of my body so I can focus on the lower part. So I want you to notice how it feels around the hip of the top leg. You may feel a deep stretch around the tissues on the outside of that hip and the glutes and the deeper layer of muscles. So this gets into piriformis and lots of other of those little fingerling muscles that reach from the legs up around, attaching onto different parts of the hip and the sacrum. So just allow yourself to be really soft. I want you to notice how it feels inside the hip sockets. So in this position, generally you feel a little bit of
expansion in one hip and a little bit of compression in the other hip. So I want you to imagine softness in both hip joints. Allow the legs to be heavy. Notice if you're holding tension around the shoulders and try to release that tension. And try to allow the pelvic floor to release its tension. Try to allow everything on the inside, so if you can feel into the pelvis, try to allow everything to just be relaxed. And then starting to take the first of 3 long, deep breaths. I want you to imagine that you can take your breath to where you feel most tension. I want the exhalation to be a release of the tension, feeling expansion. Inhaling and exhaling. One more deep inhalation, and then gently bring the energy into your hands. Coming up, if you're doing the half shoelace, then you're going to swap the leg to the other side. If you're doing the full version, you're going to take both legs. So just releasing both legs, and then we take the right leg in. We're going to place the right foot outside of the left hip, and then place the left foot outside of the right hip. Taking the bolster back into place. And then allowing yourself to fold forward. And remember, if you have one leg straight and you've just swapped the leg, try to put a little blanket maybe under the leg so that it's not so hard. And then coming down as far as is comfortable for you. You can release a little deeper once things start to open up. So when we practice these yin yoga positions, we're surrendering into the connective tissue. And that takes a little bit of time to expand. So as you allow yourself to release in this position, start by letting the hips go. So allow all of the little gripping sensations to release. Notice where you feel the most compressive forces. And try to imagine softness around that area. Notice how it feels right deep in your pelvis. Can you gather up the tension using your mind's eye and move that tension away from your pelvis? Notice how it feels through the pelvic floor. Can you bring a softness from the front of the pelvic floor all the way through to the base of your spine? Try to release the grip around the hips and reflect that in the shoulders. So relax the shoulders a little deeper. And then starting to take the first of 3 long, deep breaths. Breathe deep into your hip sockets and exhale the tension from there. Breathe as though you can breathe all the way to your toes and draw the tension from the legs, exhaling the air with the tension. And on the last inhale, gently bring energy into your hands. Gently take yourself up. Then, releasing the legs. So after that very deep stretch, we're going to give the legs a little shake. And then we're going to come down onto the elbows and go for a little windscreen wipers. So this is just releasing any last little bit of tension from around the hips, giving yourself a free butt massage, just rolling over the glutes. And then coming back into the center. So that is it for our little
exercise session for today. I hope that you have enjoyed this. I hope that that deep shoelace pose gave you a good release around the hips after all the hard work that you've done on your hips over the last few days. Now we're going to continue tomorrow. Hopefully you're still with me. I wish you a very lovely evening and I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow.